Happy Monday and welcome back to the Locked On Red Sox podcast. We hope everybody had an amazing and relaxing weekend. I am your host, Massachusetts Power's team insider, Jake Ignaszewski, and I'm here with my co-host, NESN writer, Lauren Campbell. We greatly appreciate everybody making Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. But in this episode, Lauren and I are going to be touching on some of the minor league signings that the Red Sox have had over the past few days, as well as touching a little bit on the Trevor Story situation after a big deal went through with Carlos Correa going to the Minnesota Twins. And Lauren and I are going to be talking about our reactions to that crazy signing. All right, let's get into this episode.
You are Locked On Red Sox, your daily Boston Red Sox podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
So I wanted to start this episode off touching on some of the Red Sox spring training games. We obviously saw the first game against the Minnesota Twins, the Red Sox winning 14-1. But yesterday, or we're recording this on Saturday, so on Friday, we saw the Red Sox walk it off with top prospect Christian Koss hitting his second home run of the game and hitting a moonshot over the monster. When you first saw that, Lauren, what was your reaction?
It was fun. I know spring training games don't count, but this is a really fun time to see the prospects, especially. And, Koss's second home run of the game was a big one. And like I said, I know the games don't count, but just to have that energy and that excitement already around the team, especially, there's a lot of pessimism around the team right now with this lineup, and they've looked decent. I mean, it's 21 runs in 2 games. It's not too bad, but I'm having fun. I'm glad baseball's back. It was a great way to end a game. The excitement was there, and it's nice that Koss's dad was filming the recording on his phone. It's just so pure. Like, you love those moments. So just a really cool, exciting moment all around.
I couldn't agree more. And that, what a bat flip that he had. I saw
it was just a drop, just a bam right on the ground. It was awesome.
I saw the video that MLB posted on their Instagram, and we actually have the opportunity to interview Christian on Monday. So that episode will be coming out Tuesday. So we'll get an exclusive reaction from him himself on how he felt off of the bat from that home run. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of pessimism around the team right now. It was nice to see Nathan Eovaldi on the bump, getting some work in. And we also had a good friend of the show, Cole Cottom, back there on the backstop catching for Eovaldi. And now going into Saturday's game, we see Pivetta, and it's nice because now we're starting to see some of the guys that we'll see in the Red Sox rotation getting ready for the season.
Yeah, and it's, I know that it's kind of condensed. It's a shorter spring training than there usually is because of the lockout, but it was good to see Eovaldi on there. It's not going to be, we're not going to see lights out from these guys. I mean, they're getting their work in, they're ramping up now. So I'm not concerned at all about Eovaldi. Cora said today he felt fine. So that's the most important, that you're feeling okay the day after your start. So it's good to see him. I'm excited to see Pivetta. I got a lot of faith in Pivetta this year, and I'm excited to see hopefully what he can bring to this rotation.
Me as well. And, we saw another guy in Bobby Dalbeck get his second home run of the spring. He's starting to look really good, but I can't really get my hopes up too much. As we saw last spring training, he led the entire MLB in home runs. And I'll never forget Jared Carrabba saying on Section 10, this guy's going to hit 55 home runs minimum. And, we obviously saw those rookie struggles in the first half, and then he obviously started catching up in the second half. But I'm excited to see him starting to look really good.
Yeah, it's really encouraging to see him start spring training very strong. Obviously, with the 2 games, 2 home runs, that's something you want to see. But, like I mentioned earlier, these games don't count. And people can have a really, really strong spring and be so bad in the regular season. And then vice versa. They can struggle in spring training and just be dominant in the regular season. But I think it's a good start for Bobby Dalbeck. I do think that the rookie struggles were obviously there last year. And then he kind of got that fire lit under him, probably because Kyle Schwarber was traded for. And I think that we're going to see a good, strong version of Bobby Dalbeck. And I think he's really going to kind of come into his own this season. And I think there'll probably still be struggles. It's only going to be a second full season. So we can't expect the world from him. But there is reason to be optimistic with his first 2 games, and hopefully it's going to continue throughout spring and carry that over right into the regular season.
Very true. And, I'm really excited to see him playing second base, a little bit of the outfield as well, see how he really performs out there. We saw the Red Sox pick up and bring back first baseman Travis Shaw to a minor league deal yesterday. And, if he does make the major league roster, he'll get $1.5 million. But we could potentially see Shaw slot in there at first base before Casas potentially comes up midseason if we see Dalbeck either at second base or in the outfield during some of these games.
Yeah, I think it's a depth signing, like a lot of these most recent signings have been. And what Cora said about Shaw on Friday kind of really stuck out to me, that he's like, we saw the quality at bats and the limited at bats that he had for Boston last season when he was claimed off waivers, and they liked what they saw, and they saw enough. They said he's still in really good shape. He looks really good. And I mean, it's not a signing that's going to get people super excited. For Red Sox fans, they will be. They're not going to be over the moon. They're not going to be like if Red Sox go out and sign Trevor Story. But Shaw, he began his career in Boston. When he came back last year, all that excitement was around him, and he had the walk-off grand slam. So he's a fine player, and I think he'll be a good platoon if he does make the big league roster. But also, it's a minor league contract, so the Red Sox are an injury away or an illness away from needing him to slot in. So. And he has some versatility there too. So he can play the infield, he can DH if they need him to. So he comes cheap too. So it's a good depth signing, familiar with the organization, was fine last year, but I'm not expecting, 25 home runs, 30 home runs from him or anything like that.
Yeah, people forget that Shaw came up through the Red Sox farm system, came up with Xander Bogaerts, Rafael Devers, Christian Vasquez as well. So he, like you mentioned, he has familiarity with the team, and over 28 games last season after getting picked up off of waivers, hitting .238 with 3 home runs and 11 RBIs. And I'll never forget, his first real action with the Red Sox, hitting a grand slam walk-off. And, he got the nickname Mayor of Ding Dong City. So, the Red Sox and Chaim Bloom are definitely crossing their fingers that they can get some of that clutch hitting that we saw from Travis Shaw last season as well. And, they also brought back another guy in reliever, Hansel Robles, who we really saw down the stretch really start to come into his own. And he's also reported coming back on a minor league deal as well. So, as I mentioned, the front office is definitely crossing their fingers that they can get the second half sort of Hansel Robles performance.
I hope so, because I hate this signing. I hate everything about it. I was not a fan of him last year. He did have his moments, yes, but it was just, I would have been happy if the Red Sox just decided to move on from him. Yeah. So I know it's a minor league deal. It's not guaranteed that he'll slot into this bullpen at all, but the bullpen does need help, and he's a perfect candidate to slide in there. So I'm not thrilled with it. Like I said, I would have been happy if the Red Sox, if he was never in a Red Sox uniform again. I want to be proven wrong. I like when I'm happy about something and then I'm wrong. I want to be wrong, but I don't have anything like positive to say about this deal other than it's a minor league and he might not make the major league roster. But like I said, hopefully he can prove me wrong, because the signing stinks.
Well, I was a little bit happier when I saw that it was a minor league signing, as you mentioned. That he could not make the team, and they could start him down in Worcester to give him some time to get acclimated. Especially with this shortened spring training, it's going to be even a little bit shorter for him. I mean, he's still in the Dominican Republic right now, waiting for his visa, according to Alex Cora. And over 25 innings last season, pitching a 3.60 ERA with an impressive 30.3 strikeout rate. But as you mentioned, he was very unreliable, especially when he first started with the Sox. And he even a little bit, down the stretch when he started to look a little bit better also in the playoffs. When he came in, as fans, you sort of hold your breath, hoping and praying that he's not going to let up a go-ahead home run or blow up this game.
Yeah, there's a lot of pitchers like that in the bullpen now. When you think about last year we had the pitchers come in and you're like, oh no, it's a 2-run game and you have Ryan Brazier on the mound. Hansel Robles would come in and there was just no confidence. And there's still not a ton of confidence in this bullpen. They need that reliable arm desperately, and it's not Hansel Robles.
You're always gonna make me laugh when you bring up Brian Brazier. But so we asked Locked On Red Sox Twitter what they thought of the Hansel Robles signing. We got Jamie Gatlin saying, I love it. We got Jess saying, yuck. We got
I agree with Jess.
Justin Van Dyke, indifferent. We got New York Patriot saying barf. So, as you mentioned, some people like it, some people don't like it. It's a little bit of familiarity, I believe, with Red Sox Nation to why they're a little bit not as upset as we may think. But, the Red Sox also brought on another guy who I was a little bit indifferent on. When I first saw this signing, first thing that came to mind is pitching depth. And I don't really think this guy could really make the major league roster or start the season. And reliever Derek Holland, a lot of people might remember him being a really good starting pitcher for the Texas Rangers back in, 2011, 2012. But he's not the same guy that he was now at 35 years old, between 2020 with the Pirates and 2021 with the Tigers, logging 90 in a third total innings. He had a 5.88 ERA, and I look at this as a depth piece. I don't look at this as a signing to get excited about that he's going to bolster the bullpen or anything.
Yeah, I think, like the other signings, they're just depth. And I know, I can't remember who tweeted it, but they quote tweeted that tweet and was like depth with the Dr. Evil gif with the air quotes. So I thought that was funny because I was like, yeah, that's kind of how I'm feeling about it too. No one's going to be the same guy they were 9 or 10, 11 years ago, right. But it's that ERA is a little high. It's too high for my liking. It is what it is. I think that the Red Sox here are just making the smaller moves like they have for the last 2 or 3 years, really. And hopefully that means a bigger move is coming that will please Red Sox fans, because right now they're not very happy, and they have every right not to be happy. You're watching the other teams around you in your division just continue to make the moves that help them. And the Blue Jays are all of a sudden just like this unbelievably stacked team. Yeah. And now it's like, that maybe the odds have them at 4th place. Maybe that is not reliable. That is realistic. And right now it kind of seems like they are only better than the Orioles at this very moment.
Well, and then when you also see John Heyman reporting, there's a possibility of, second baseman, third baseman, Jose Ramirez from the Cleveland Guardians going over to Blue Jays. Yeah. I see that. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? That infield and that lineup is going to be unstoppable. But, we can only make that comment when it actually happens and hope and pray that it doesn't as Red Sox fans. But lastly, they made a few minor league moves. We could potentially see these guys not in a Red Sox uniform anytime soon. We'll probably see them in Worcester with Dan Altavilla. He signed a 2-year minor league contract and is currently recovering from Tommy John surgery. And we can most likely see him starting to pitch a little bit in June or July. In 2020, only pitching 9 games with a 3.12 ERA. Mostly look at this as sort of like a depth piece of, if a guy does get injured, we might have the depth for a, major league potential, I don't want to say proven, but a veteran type of player that we could just slot in for a game or two. And then also Devi Grulian, he signed on a minor league deal, invited to camp. 26-year-old catcher, appeared in 5 major league games not last season, in 2019, 4 with the Phillies and 1 with the Red Sox in 2020. He went 2 for 12 in that tiny sample, as well as over 616 plate appearances in AAA with a 2.60 ERA. So these are minor league signings, but I just wanted to touch on those for Red Sox fans to understand a little bit more of what else the team has been doing.
Yeah, I mean, like the others, they're just depth pieces, they're depth signings, and if they're not going to help the Red Sox, maybe they can help Worcester or Portland, wherever they end up playing. But it's like the other signings, they're not going to cause Red Sox fans to be really, really excited and get them pumped for the 2022 season.
Completely agree. And I think one thing that we're seeing Chaim Bloom do is really be as cautious as possible for the possibility of there to be a lot of potential injuries, maybe another COVID outbreak, hopefully not. But I think he's trying to be rather cautious and careful than, not doing anything at all. And we're seeing half of the half of the AAA team up on the major league roster, in April last season. So I think he's trying to get some proven major league guys that we can trust if that situation does happen again. But going into our second segment, we're going to touch a little bit on the possibility of Trevor Story coming to the Red Sox. As I mentioned before, we're recording this on Saturday, so we're going to touch on this as if a deal hasn't happened yet. And we're also going to react to the Carlos Correa deal and how that could potentially impact Xander Bogaerts going into his final contract season, at least before he could potentially opt out for the 2023 offseason. But first, I want to thank you so much for making Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. Now go and check out Locked On MLB Prospects. Your host, Lindsey Crosby, is a prospect encyclopedia. And he's going deep on the MLB stars of tomorrow. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And then I also want to take a second to talk to you about BetOnline. It's that time of year again as college basketball's tournament is finally upon us. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the number one source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wager information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about all the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. So going into this next segment, I just want to get your reaction on waking up this morning when you saw Carlos Correa to the Minnesota Twins for 3 years, $105 million. What was your first reaction?
I was just like, what the heck? Because the Twins were not a team that I expected to even be in the running. Probably one of the last teams I expected him to even go to. But the contract is really nice. And this is what Scott Boras does, right? I mean, he leverages that contract and his clients. And we're seeing this with Correa. You can opt out after 2022. What year is it? So I mean, it's a good contract. It's also kind of tradable. So if their Twins are at the deadline and they are very much out of it, they can trade Correa for some prospect pieces, some depth there, and maybe rebuild their team to try to get into contention for years down the road. But I mean, good for him. It's certainly, I was expecting a much longer term, a bigger money contract. And I think that's just because before the lockout, so much was surrounding, is he going to get a 10-year deal? Is he going to get some even 5 to 8 year deal? And he didn't sign anything that anyone probably thought he was going to. But good for him. I'm glad that piece of the saga is over and we know where he's going. We know where he will play. There will be no more speculation. I am excited to hear, in his introductory press conference, the decision that went behind it, how long maybe Minnesota's even been involved in this, and what was like really the deciding factor. And if any other information comes out about potential deals from other teams, see maybe what he turned down. That's probably my favorite thing about free agency, is looking at the other deals that got turned down by players, because you look at some of them and you're like, why would they turn down this? But I mean, Correa's going to get paid either way, and now he has a chance to play on a different team at the trade deadline. And only 3 years. This guy's in his prime. And the only thing that concerns me is he does have the back problems. And is it worse than we may have seen or may know about? And he's getting a smaller term deal because they're unsure just if this injury will impact him going forward.
I think the number one thing that intrigued him and Scott Boras is the opt-out years after each season.
Oh, yeah.
I gives me a flashback to the Nicholas Castellanos signing with the Cincinnati Reds. In his introductory press conference, a reporter asked him, why were those opt-outs after each season so important to you? And he takes the microphone and puts it right over next to Scott Boras, and he goes, that's a Scott question right there for you. And I think it sets him up perfectly for a potential mega deal in either 2023, 2024. Trey Turner, as well as potentially Xander Bogaerts, are free agents going into 2023. So we could see Correa potentially looking for that 10-year, 325, 350 type of deal. But I think this makes the Trevor Story market so much bigger. Now that the Astros don't really have a reliable shortstop other than I think they have a prospect over there that they were thinking about slotting into that position. But with the Astros and really the Yankees, the only teams in the mix right now for Trevor Story that will give him a guaranteed spot at shortstop. As much as I want Trevor Story in a Red Sox uniform playing in Beantown, I think that those are the most likely teams, and that's something that we saw John Heyman report this past few days ago.
Yeah, and Trevor Story makes sense for the Yankees and the Astros. He still makes sense for the Red Sox, but he has to play second base if he comes to Boston. And there's a lot of talk about that, and we could talk for hours about Xander Bogaerts' future, his time at shortstop. Would he want to move? But I think that Trevor Story going to either the Astros or the Yankees, especially if he goes to the Yankees, that the AL East is just getting stronger, while the Red Sox are just kind of not doing anything to bolster their roster and their chances of winning the AL East, getting to a deeper run in the playoffs, being more than just a wild card team. So, of course, the Yankees and the Astros, of course, they're going to be interested. The Astros lost Correa. The Yankees spend a lot of money, so it makes sense for them to be involved. Obviously, I'd love to have Trevor Story here. Like I said about Freddie Freeman, he makes your lineup better. But it's just a matter of if the Red Sox want to shell out the money, are they going to give him what he wants when he gets here? So there's a lot of what ifs, and I think there might be too many what ifs for the Red Sox to end up signing him.
And we also heard that the Rangers as well as the Giants are in the mix as well. And, when you look at it, the Rangers have Corey Seager as well as Marcus Semien slotted in second base and shortstop. So we could potentially see Story at third base, as well as the Giants have Brandon Crawford at shortstop. So, those three teams I just mentioned, those two teams as well as the Red Sox, have players in that shortstop position that they're not really looking to move to any other position. And I think that could be the deciding factor for Story. And as I mentioned, this with the Correa deal, I think we saw a lot of guys, especially Story, waiting to see how Correa's deal could really make his market even bigger, as well as potentially set him up for a big payday. So we could see, the Astros and the Yankees paying a little bit more than they would have for Trevor Story, let's say, if he had signed earlier than Correa did.
Yeah, and we see this a lot, that one person sets that market, and not just for the rest of the free agent class this year, but for free agents next year, for players who can opt out after next year. Like I said, a lot of what ifs can go into signings and potential big money deals, how it could impact others. So very interesting Saturday morning for sure when it comes to the free agent market.
And then we also saw this morning that, when a reporter asked about the possibility, when a reporter asked Xander Bogaerts about the Carlos Correa signing, reported by Chris Cotillo, that JD Martinez came up right next to him and said, Xander's going to be very rich. And so, this sort of set up the market for Xander Bogaerts for this possible next season where he has the opportunity to opt out. Him and Devers have said multiple times, I love this place. I want to stay here for the rest of my career. But as we know, money sort of dictates people's decisions. And so we could potentially see Xander Bogaerts walk away from the Red Sox this next season looking for that Carlos Correa or Corey Seager type of deal. But obviously, as Red Sox fans, we want to see him in Beantown for the rest of his career.
Yeah, money talks. And I think that when Xander Bogaerts signed this extension, we knew that he was criminally underpaid with it. We knew that the opt-out was probably going to come unless he suffered some giant downward spiral. But he's earned that. Obviously he's earned the right to opt out. He absolutely should opt out if an extension can't be reached. And it sounds like he doesn't want to talk during the regular season, that he'd be fine talking until opening day. And he's like, nope, once opening day hits, I want to focus on the season, which that's how it should be. You don't want that looming over your head, and you don't want the reports getting out there that maybe nothing got nothing got done on time, blah, blah, blah. It only creates more of a distraction. But yeah, I mean, the second he signed that extension, like I said, I knew that he was probably going to opt out. He's going to get paid, whether it's from the Red Sox. It's going to be interesting just given the history of letting people walk, whether it be John Lester and then trading Mookie Betts, and just like letting people get away that probably should have been lifers. So it will be very, very interesting to see how the Red Sox handle Bogaerts, whether he decides to opt out or if they can get something done before then. So, I mean, we'll see. I'd love for Xander Bogaerts to be in Boston for the rest of his career, but Red Sox got to open up that checkbook.
Very true. And that's something that we haven't really seen so far especially this offseason, especially since Bloom has taken over. The biggest contract that he has really given out is Kike Hernandez, 2 years, $14 million. And, we saw another guy that the Red Sox were interested in, Nicholas Castellanos, going to the Philadelphia Phillies. And, this really is sort of minimizing that right-handed position player market that Bloom said that he was going to be heavily involved in. And, one guy that comes to mind who I haven't really heard anything on, quite honestly, in the past few days is Jorge Salaire. And I think he could be a perfect guy to fit into that outfield position, as well as he could slot into DH as well. But I think his swing is perfectly fit for Fenway. But, especially with spring training in the next 2 weeks, I'm very curious to see what sort of moves the Red Sox do make to potentially, fill out this depth chart and answer a lot of questions that we've been wondering not only throughout this whole offseason, but ever since the lockout has ended.
Yeah, and time's ticking. I mean, opening day is two weeks away or so. So they need to really kind of ramp it up or commit to going into the regular season with what they have. And if they go into the regular season with what they have, there's going to be a lot of angry Red Sox fans.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. But we're going to go into our last and final segment of this episode. But Lauren just wants to take a second to talk to you about Built Bar.
So I obviously love Built Bar. You know that by now, and it's March. We're almost in April, which it's just crazy to think about now. So usually by this time, my New Year's resolutions are out the window, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right, and Built Bar makes that super easy, especially when it comes to the Built Bar Puffs. They are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. So they're marshmallowy, obviously. They're really fluffy, and they're just really, really good. And they're covered in 100% real chocolate, just like all other Built Bars, all covered in 100% real chocolate. They're low calorie, high protein. Go to built.com, check out their macros because most of them are 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, 17 grams of protein. They have a flavor for literally everyone: mint brownie, coconut almond, my personal favorite, cookies and cream. You can never go wrong with that. And at Built Bar, they're all about taste. So they don't taste like cardboard. They're not very cardboardy. They don't have that shocky kind of taste that some protein bars have. And if you head on over to built.com and use promo code LOCKED15, you will get 15% off your order. That's LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
So going into our third and final segment, I just want to take a second to thank absolutely everybody that has taken any time out of their day to listen to this podcast. We get every second once, and even if you listen to a second to Lauren and I talking about our favorite team, it really means the world to us. We love talking about this team. We love giving you guys updates and our opinions about this organization. As frustrating it has been since the lockout has happened, we're definitely both very, very excited that Red Sox baseball is back, baby. But we have some very exciting guests, very exciting people to talk to. One person I'm going to mention, like I mentioned at the start of the show, we're going to have Red Sox top prospect Christian Koss. That episode will be coming out on Tuesday, but I'm going to allow you guys to get excited for next week because that's the only sneak peek that I'm really going to give, but we're going to try and get some Red Sox fans on the show is to give some of their opinions before the season starts. But we want to get you guys as involved as possible. Something that we've mentioned throughout this offseason is we want to be the most engaging Red Sox podcast that there is out there. So we want to hear your guys' thoughts. Tweet at us and follow us on Twitter is locked is LO_Red Sox, and we try to post Red Sox content every single day and get you guys involved and hear your thoughts about everything that's going on around the team. Also follow myself on Twitter. It's at Jake Iggy, as well as Lauren. It's three laws, Lauren, with 4 R's. But we greatly appreciate everybody making Locked On Red Sox your first listen every single day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, please call him Sully, brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. So, as I mentioned, if you have not yet, subscribe on YouTube or on whatever audio platform that you're listening to so you never miss an episode of Locked On Red Sox. We're going to be going back to 5 days a week. So you're going to be seeing and hearing Lauren and I's voices, and you're going to be seeing our faces 5 days a week from now on. So get ready for a lot of exciting and fun content coming from this podcast. But as always, we greatly appreciate all the support, and we hope that everybody has a great rest of the day. See you next time.